Welcome to TEAS exam practice test. Our topic today is reading. Use the link in the description to download the app on the App Store for free practice tests. Number 1. Read the writing below carefully. Careering madly in a motor car behind a herd of antelope fleeing like wind-blown ribbons across a desert which is not a desert, past caravans of camels led by picturesque Mongol horsemen, the 20th century suddenly and violently interjected into the Middle Ages and should be contrast and paradox enough for even the most sophisticated sportsman. I am a naturalist who has wandered into many of the far corners of the earth. I have seen strange men and things, but what I saw on the Great Mongolian Plateau fairly took my breath away and left me dazed, utterly unable to adjust my mental perspective. When leaving Peking in late August 1918 to cross the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, I knew that I was to go by motor car. But somehow the very names Mongolia and Gobi Desert brought such a vivid picture of the days of Kublai Khan and ancient Cathay that my clouded mind refused to admit the thought of automobiles. It was enough that I was going to the land of which I had so often dreamed. Answer the question. The author's description of a herd of antelope fleeing like wind-blown ribbons is an example of A. A metaphor. B. An analog. C. A simile. D. Hyperbole. The correct answer is C. A simile. Explanation. The author's description of a herd of antelope fleeing like wind-blown ribbons is an example of a simile. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two different things using the words like or as. A simile differs from a metaphor in that a metaphor compares two unlike things by saying that the one thing is the other thing. Number 2. Read the writing below carefully. NASA has studied the effects of zero gravity on the human body to ensure the safety of astronauts traveling through space. NASA researchers found that the heart, lungs and blood vessels function differently in space than they do here on Earth. On Earth, blood and other body fluids tend to accumulate in the lower half of the body due to gravity. In zero gravity, fluids accumulate in the upper half of the body in a way that does not happen here on Earth. This accumulation of fluids in the upper half of the body puts unusual pressure and demands on the heart, brain, kidneys and blood vessels. To counteract these effects, the body responds by getting rid of excess fluid through increased urination and decreased thirst. This response decreases the total volume of blood and electrolytes in the body, causing the heart and blood vessels to decrease in size relative to their size on Earth. Answer the question. According to the passage, why do fluids accumulate in the upper half of the body? A. The heart pumps faster in space than on Earth. B. There is no gravity to pool fluids in the lower half of the body like on Earth. C. Blood and other fluids are less viscous in space. D. Astronauts can easily turn upside down in zero gravity. The correct answer is B. There is no gravity to pool fluids in the lower half of the body like on Earth. Explanation. According to the passage, blood and other body fluids tend to accumulate in the lower half of the body due to gravity. In zero gravity, fluids accumulate in the upper half of the body in a way that doesn't happen here on Earth. Number 3. Read the sentence below carefully. A rabbit's foot may bring good luck to you, but it brought none to the rabbit. What does the author of this passage mainly use to make his point? A. Comparison and likeness. B. Repetition and exclamation. C. Irony and cynicism. D. Humor and satire. The correct answer is C. Irony and cynicism. Explanation. The author of this passage makes his point mainly by the use of irony and cynicism. Irony is used to express an idea that is opposite than what is expected. In this case, the idea of a rabbit's foot is considered good luck in common usage, but, as the author points out, the opposite is true from the rabbit's point of view. Cynicism takes the view that people are motivated by self-interest and typically disregard outcomes in order to get what they want. In this passage, cynicism is used to point out that, although the bearer of the rabbit's foot thought he had good luck, the rabbit did not because it likely was killed for the foot. Cynicism in this passage is used with wry humor to make the author's point. Number 4. Read the writing below carefully. Towards the end of his life there were few persons with whom Snarly would converse, for his contempt of the human race was immeasurable. There was Mrs. Abel at the rectory, whom he adored. There were the Perrymans, whom he loved. And there was myself, whom he tolerated. There was also his old wife, whom he treated as part of himself, neither better nor worse. With other human beings, saving only the children, his intercourse was limited as far as possible to interjectory grunts and snarls, whence his name. Answer the question. How many people and groups of people are mentioned in the passage with whom Snarly would converse? A. 2. B. 3. C. 4. D. 5. The correct answer is D. 5. Explanation. The passage identifies 5 people or groups of people with whom Snarly would converse: Mrs. Abel, the Perrymans, his wife, the narrator and children. Number 5. Refer to the following picture to answer the question. What type of communication is this? A. Text. B. Classified advertisement. C. Flyer. D. Brochure. The correct answer is B. Classified advertisement. Explanation. It is evident from the form of the communication that this is a classified ad. Classified ads are found in newspapers or online advertising and are typically short and limited to one newspaper column in width. A text is typically a less formal communication that does not use formatting. The communication is also not a flyer or brochure, as those communications would typically provide more information in a larger format. Number 6. Read the writing below carefully. An old maid, that's what I'm to be. A literary spinster, with a pen for a spouse, a family of stories for children, and 20 years hence a morsel of fame, perhaps, when, like poor Johnson, I'm old and can't enjoy it, solitary, and can't share it, independent, and don't need it. Well, I needn't be a sour saint nor a selfish sinner, and, I dare say, old maids are very comfortable when they get used to it, but. And there Joe sighed, as if the prospect was not inviting. Answer the question. Which of the following most likely occurred prior to Joe having these thoughts? A. Her birthday. B. Her wedding anniversary. C. Her mother's death. D. Her sister's marriage. The correct answer is A. Her birthday. Explanation. From the passage, it is clear that Joe is concerned about getting older. She is anxious on the thought that she will be alone as she gets older. Since the passage deals with age, it is most likely that Joe had a birthday prior to this passage, which caused her to think about getting older. Number 7. Read the writing below carefully. It has been thought that the purpose of punishment is to reform the criminal, that it is to deter the criminal and others from committing similar crimes, and that it is retribution. Few would now maintain that the first of these purposes was the only one. If it were, every prisoner should be released as soon as it appears clear that he will never repeat his offense, and if he is incurable he should not be punished at all. Answer the question. What assumption does the author ask his readers to make? A. That only a few people would agree that reform is the only purpose of punishment. B. That criminals can be rehabilitated. C. That incurable criminals should not be punished at all. D. That punishment deters criminals from repeat offenses. The correct answer is A. That only a few people would agree that reform is the only purpose of punishment. Explanation. The author asks his readers to assume that only a few people would agree that reform is the only purpose of punishment, which is a technique used in an argument to persuade others that most people agree with his argument. Number 8. Read the writing below carefully. Genetics is the study of heredity and inherited characteristics, like eye and hair color, and just about everything other heritable trait we get from our ancestors. But genetics is only part of who and what we become. There is a controversy within the field of genetics as to how much of who we are is due to nature and how much is due to nurture. The reasons for the controversy come from studies of identical twins who share nearly identical genetics but often have distinct personalities and features. Each twin develops unique characteristics that cannot be explained by nature alone. Nurturing appears to have a profound effect on the development of our personality. Answer the question. What can be inferred from the passage? A. Genetics would not include traits within populations. B. Genetics would include the study of genes we received from our parents. C. Genetics is only concerned with inherited characteristics in an ancestral line. D. Genetics is a very controversial subject. The correct answer is B. Genetics would include the study of genes we received from our parents. Explanation. It can be inferred from the passage that genetics would include the study of genes we received from our parents. Geneticists are not only concerned with inherited characteristics in an ancestral line, they are also interested in gene flow across ancestral lines. Number 9. Read the writing below carefully. This was a man she had heard much of but never seen. He had been her husband's college friend, was now a journalist, and in no sense a society man or a man about town, which were, perhaps, some of the reasons she had never met him. But she had unconsciously formed an image of him in her mind. She pictured him tall, slim, cynical, with eyeglasses, and his hands in his pockets, and she did not like him. Gerald was slim enough, but he wasn't very tall nor very cynical. Neither did he wear eyeglasses, nor carry his hands in his pockets. And she rather liked him when he first presented himself. Answer the question. Based on this passage, what can you infer that the main character felt about or toward her husband's college friend before she met him? A. Aversion and contempt. B. Deferential and obsequious. C. Veneration and admiration. D. Disapproval and distaste. The correct answer is D. Disapproval and distaste. Explanation. Based on this passage, we can infer that the main character felt disapproval and distaste toward her husband's college friend before she met him. Disapproval and distaste mean generally dislike. Aversion and contempt are not correct because they mean a strong dislike, which is not expressed in the passage. Rather, it seems the main character instinctively formed a dislike of her husband's friend simply because he was her husband's friend, went to college, or because he was a journalist. The reason why the main character disliked her husband's friend is apparently not understood by the main character. Number 10. Read the writing below carefully. He ate and drank the precious words. His spirit grew robust. He knew no more that he was poor, nor that his frame was dust. He danced along the dingy days. And this bequest of wings was but a book. What liberty a loosened spirit brings. Answer the question. What did the man do in this passage? A. Eat a meal. B. Learn to fly. C. Read a book. D. Hear music. The correct answer is C. Read a book. Explanation. The author is writing about a man who read a book in this passage. The passage has several clues suggesting it is about a book. He ate and drank the precious words, indicating that the man took in words as nourishment. Then the lines, and this bequest of wings was but a book, tells us that the man read a book, which caused him to experience a lift in his spirits. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for updated videos every week.